Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Thanks for joining us today. We already have a nice handful of people that are in. Kara, of course, Sandy, Christiana, Jack, good to see you. Bethany, Mike, Suzanne, Matt, Stacy, Kun. Thanks for joining us. And I'm really excited about this particular session of the LMS playlist because Nick has been talking about this one for a while, and we finally got back to each other, and so I'm glad that we're actually producing this one. But as you can see, we are going to be talking about reimagining the LMS. And what did you call it again? It was hitting reset. That's what it was. Hitting reset. Reimagining the LMS, which is, I think, if you at all are, like work with LMSs or just shopping for one, have anything to do with that, this is just a great exercise altogether to kind of just try to figure out like what you're really, really looking for. And I don't know of anyone better on the planet to kind of guide us in this conversation than Nick Floro. So, Nick, thank you so much for doing this with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and hopefully we'll have some fun.
I got just a few questions for you before we really get into that MIRO board. I want to ask you, why did you come up with this idea?
Oh, so in my everyday role, outside of talking to people, as a learning architect, my main job is to help figure out or reimagine whatever we're working on. So whether it's an activity or an LXP. So I thought it would be a lot of fun for some of the members that may not have had this opportunity yet. I love the ideal of everyone sketching and prototyping, and I think by us all having this superpower, it'll make us stronger, better at what we're doing and building better experiences.
No, that's fantastic. So, and using the MIRO board, you were saying earlier to me in the green room, that's something you do on a daily basis with your team, right? Using design thinking sort of processes to come up with ideas.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much fun because what I found over the last several months while we're locked away in our rooms is that you start to pick up on each other's traits. So if we do this one or two times, I'm sure Karen knows me well. She'll start to fill in the gaps. But I've noticed that as a person adds a sticky note or adds a bubble or starts to wireframe something, someone else will jump in and start to play with colors or duplicate it. And it's just so much fun to just kind of zoom out and watch people work. But you start to build off each other's thinking or streams of consciousness, and it just makes it that much more fun.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's in our Slack channel, there's actually now an instructional designer from MIRO that has been posting. Yeah, it's
up there. It's on my Slack screen up there. It's like I saw that yesterday. I was like, oh, it's so cool. Does everyone get a free membership? No.
Cool. Can you just tell me a little bit your background as a learning architect? Like, what's your background working with LMSs?
So I've been around for 28 years, and I'm going to say up until the first 20 years, mainly what we did is build courses that lived in LMSs. And then I got tired because I thought these things don't do what I need them to do. So we started to design applications, which then became LXPs. But our main day-to-day job now is designing things that live outside of the LMS, reporting back to the LMS. But I just love the ideal, especially today, I think I might have mentioned before, but with my kids, they're all at home working remotely. And so I have them taking screen grabs of what they're doing daily to share back and throw in a MIRO board so that we can look at what's working, what's not. And it's so cool to see how it's evolved over the last year as they've been in lockdown. But it also helps feed me data then, which we use then.
That's great. Sorry, LXP, what is that? Learning experience something?
Platform. Learning experience platform. So that's the magic new word in the ecosystem. So the ideal is that this thing sits in front of the LMS because the LMS has become this monstrosity that you can't make it easy for users to find content. It's being primarily used for compliance training, and people love the data, or learning people love the data, or some of us love the data. And so it checks the box. So for those people, they have their LMS. So the LXP is for the design world, I think of it as, to help make it easier for users to find things, to jump into different paths or things that they might want to jump into. learn.
Nice. Okay. And I got one more question. I just have to ask this because people ask all the time. Is there one piece of advice that you would give for somebody that is shopping currently for an LMS?
You know what? In the Miro board, I actually, using the design thinking methodology, I added in the define phase several articles that I found that will help, make you think about, here's my checklist. I think the biggest gotcha is that when we rush into the latest LMS and we don't think about these are the things that my audience needs, we get trapped in the sales pitch and we're like, yeah, let's do it. And then they go away and you're like, this isn't working. And you're stuck with it for 2 years because that's usually the contract. So one of the things that we try to do from a design standpoint is that we're using services from Amazon and Google and IBM where we don't have to charge per user. So that makes it a lot easier and more cost effective when you're working with 50,000 to 1 million students or employees to interact with content.
Right.
Because there's no fee. So the LMS people don't like that. That's okay though. Yeah.
Excellent. So I just want to establish just some expectations here. What we're going to do right now is Nick is going to introduce us to the Miro board and some of the basic concepts. Once we're done with that, we're going to wrap up. So this isn't intended to be a long session. We're going to wrap up, and then we're going to set on our calendar another day that we can get together and talk about what we've come up with on the Miro board. So just so you guys know, we're just going to be going through this now. We really encourage you to participate in what Nick is going to be showing you as far as the interactivity on the Miro board is concerned. But just so you guys know, we're not going to be like wrapping this all up today. There's going to be another one that is probably going to be in Zoom for the next one. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen so that we can get in there.
We're just teasing you. Yeah. So for those of you that haven't used Miro, Miro is now my favorite tool, and they have a new version they introduced this week called Miro.com/light. So if you're not a paid member, anyone in the world can now go Miro.com/light. They can be in a board instantly. They can share a link, and you could be collaborating with people instantly, which is amazing. The only problem is the data goes away once you leave. I think it's within 24 hours. So to buy an account, it's about, I think it's $80 a year, which is nothing in the tool sets that we use today. And what's cool is that as a facilitator, I own a copy and I can invite everyone here, and we've got 120 some people here today. So you guys can all join the links in the chat there. And what's great is that you will see yourselves flying around on the screen. And if you go to the upper part of the screen, there is a command under the 3 levers. It looks like it's right next to the question mark, but you'll see there's a command that says turn off collaborator cursors. So if those cursors are freaking you out or distracting you, you're able to turn that off and then you won't see it. I personally love watching all the cursors move around because it's like bees doing all the work, which is really cool. But that's something that people I found by doing this get reference to. So there was one quick question before we continue about LXP. So typically an LXP sits either in front of the LMS and it becomes the main interface that a user interacts with the LMS. So the LMS is still there, it's still running all the courses, but we're seeing that's changing and evolving as well, depending on the organization and what kind of powers you have to help push people in the right direction. So this board that we have, I'm gonna grab you all and drag you to me for a second. And I think I have that power. So I'm gonna say, bring everyone to me. So one of the cool things in Miro is that as I move around, you all have to follow me, because I'm the owner of the board. And if you're watching on the simulcast here, here we see an example of what design thinking. So for those of you that have not worked in the realm of design thinking, it's very similar to Agile, or what we think of Agile development today. And the basic ideal is that we first use empathy to think about what are all the challenges. And I'm sure you all have lots of stories to share about the stress and the problems that you've run into within your organization of having users complete a course or get to the course or find a course, or even coming into the system, like all those challenges. We then move into define, and you'll see that when we go into the board, I've added several articles that link out, and I encourage you all to add your own articles in here, and I'll show you how to do that. It's really easy. You just copy and paste a URL. So I'm thinking that we'll do 1 or 2 of these follow-up sessions, and in the first one that we do in the next 2 weeks or so, we'll focus on what we call ideate, where we'll look at everything that you guys have added. I added a couple of things to get us started, and we'll look at that in a second. And in that third phase, what we basically do is look at it as a team, and we start to figure out, here are the 6 areas that we want to focus on. And in that next phase, we'll start to prototype that. So as a team, we can use Miro to start the prototype, or we can move to a tool like Adobe XD or Figma. We can vote or try each if you guys want to look at them. But that's fun because then you get to start to design and look at the different possibilities. If you're scared or don't want to play, we'll walk you through it, so don't worry. And then the final phase, testing, basically what we would ask is that you run this by some of your team members or your cohort or your little world, and just get some feedback about what people think. So if you're trying to incorporate like a search engine as an example, that's something that most LXPs do well now. And this is all based on, we hear stories all the time that a user from an organization will go to Google before they'll go to the LMS, because the LMS data is typically outdated within a couple of weeks or months, and people want the latest information. So if they're looking for, how do I get started with design thinking, that LMS content might be 3 months old to a year old or older. And that's one of the challenges that we have to figure out, is how do we get that latest data or provide links or curate content for our users. So I'm going to pause and see if anyone has any questions, or Lewis, if you want to jump in, or we can continue down the path. If you're,
yeah, I think I'm not seeing anything in there.
Okay.
That all sounds fantastic to me.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to zoom out for a second. So what I did is, for people that are brand new to Miro, is that all I did is added a big JPEG, and that makes it look cool. So we're all exploring space, and we're going to conquer this new world, the LMS reimagination. And along the left-hand side, I just added the 5 stages. So we're going to focus on the empathy area and then go into define. So if I were to zoom in, the ideal is I've added a couple of prompts here. So in that first area, what are the core elements, and I didn't write out the whole sentence, but of an LMS that you want to solve for. So some of the sticky notes that I added in here is, what are the things that we need to be able to do? We need to manage our users. We need good reporting. We need to be able to add content or integrate with third-party libraries. We want to be able to customize the UX. We want to be able to find content quickly, search, and you can see all the other elements. I'm not going to read them to you. But what's cool is that if you're in the Miro board, you're able just to double-click in a sticky note, and you can write, "This is Nick," or whatever you want to write. You can write your name in there. But you can also add an ideal. So as you're reviewing stuff, you just want to think about, what are some of the things that are important to you? And we want to capture all that data. So for some reason, if everyone adds a bunch of stickies, we can just shift, highlight, and I can just drag some more stickies in here so that we have some more and we can clean it up afterwards. But the ideal is that we can move those around, we can color code them, and we just want to capture all the data. The next thing that we want to look at is, what have I seen that I would want to add or incorporate? So this is where I love to have fun, and Kara does a great job of this too, is you want to think about whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you like to hang out, or I'm playing a game, what are some things that you've seen in the world that you wish you had from a learning perspective, not for fun, but so you want to capture some of those things. So for me personally, I would love to have a leaderboard that automatically tells me out of my team who's done the most learning this week or who's done the most sharing. What are those things that you're interested in? And as we move across here, we'll see what does not work or what is a challenge in your current LMS. And I found this little report that shows over the last year, I believe this was from e-learning industry, but they were just kind of highlighting some of the things that have happened over the last 3 years and difficult to use or adapt. And we see that over the last 3 years, 4 years, that it's gotten easier. So it was at 39% and it's gone down to 30% in the last 2 years. But everyone's world is different, and we each have our own challenges. What I love doing is hearing from other groups, how do you what are your challenges and what are you doing? Because that helps me think about things that I may not have considered. So again, we're just going to use those stickies, add a couple of notes and things. And then as we move over to the right, I added a big area here just to add screen grabs and examples. So anything that you like, whether it's a Nintendo game or some article that you read, you can go and grab that and just pop it right into this document. And what's really cool is that if I were to copy and paste a URL, so if I go to my browser, and you guys can't see this, but I'm just going to go to TLDC, and if I just copy the URL and I paste it, you'll notice here on the board a little box is going to highlight. I'm just going to zoom in, and it's going to go and grab the data from the website. So it adds a link, and depending on how the site's set up. So if you see an article that you think that would help the team here better understand or better visualize or whatever you can think of, you just want to add some notes and thoughts, okay? So that's kind of homework. And on the right here, I added a bunch more colorful stickies, and you can grab them and move them around. And the whole idea here is that we just want to capture all of our thoughts. The next area is define, and here's one of the articles that I added. It's from eLearning Industry, the 20 best learning systems. So what's cool about this is if you were to open that, there's links to all those different systems, and I believe this group actually reviews them. So you can look at what, how they've analyzed it and what they think. One of the things that I also love doing is just grabbing screens. So on the right here, you can zoom into each one of these, and I just grabbed some different examples of LMSs and how they work. So this looks like a screen with some, along the left-hand side, looks kind of like WordPress or a common, I think this is Absorb CMS, but it basically allows you to go in and select a feature, add an element, and then assign it to people or groups depending on how your system is designed. So there's one here from Google. There's one here, Reimagining Google. So again, the ideal is just to go and find things that excite you, and you can add notes. So in Miro, along the left-hand side, you have that little white toolbar. And one of the really cool features they added in the last month is the pen tool. And they've really upgraded this. So I'm going to use my pencil, and on my iPad I have you guys. And so if I come on to this screen, what's cool is that I can actually go in and start to annotate on top of that screen. So I can change the color. And so I can be like, I really like this area here. I can draw an arrow and I can write a note. Nick loves this. Not sure why, but I'm just illustrating some of the possibilities here. But whatever excites you or thinks that you want to highlight for homework, if everyone takes one screen and just annotates what they love, what they don't like, and why. So you might do this to your current system, you might do this to something that's out there, but the whole goal is to just capture all of our thoughts. And then what we would do is if we jump into a Zoom call, if you guys are okay with that, I thought we could all have audio and video on, which will be a challenge with 100 people, but it's fun. And if everyone uses the mute button correctly, we can have a conversation and we can brainstorm. So usually we'll say, okay, here's all our data. And for the next 5 minutes, let's design an example of a course menu. In the next 15 minutes, let's do this, and we can break it up in a couple different ways. But the goal then would be to, whether we split into teams, and maybe we'll send out a little survey to get your guys' feedback, or we'll just say this is what we're doing. We'll just kind of use this to help launch us into some possibilities. And if you guys have any feedback or challenges that you're facing that you want to try to get team thinking around, we'll happy to consider it and play.
So ultimately, we'll just release a product and become LMS vendors and make millions, right?
Everyone's got to sign the non-disclosure. I own everything. No, just kidding. You can all own it. I don't want the trouble. Yes, it's shared knowledge. So we just have to say it's open source, so everyone can take advantage of it. There you go.
Dolores is saying this is such a cool feature. I'm really geeking out. I love it too. Miro, I think every time that I've seen it, I've kind of just been so taken with the interface, I almost forget what everyone is talking about because it seems like it can be so powerful.
Yeah, what I love is it doesn't get in the way. It just lets you focus on being creative and or brainstorming or solving a problem. And I use it for everything from taking notes to brainstorming like we're doing now, just to kind of illustrating, like when we're going through weekly stakeholder meetings, we have a board for each group and we'll just kind of illustrate things. I haven't found a limit yet. So kudos to them.
And just sorry, but you said $80 a year for it?
For one user, yeah. So it's per user.
Mm-hmm.
So if you and I were working on a project together, it would be $80 each. If I invite you, like you're all invited right now, you guys are coming in as anonymous users and it randomly gives you a name. So you can add your name to a sticky saying, Nick said this, if it doesn't stamp it. And yeah, so it just depends on the use. So with all our groups that we work with externally, they're in as free users because they're only in for half hour, an hour, whatever it is. And then we're using it. So our team has it and then we throw it back to them.
Got it.
And I think this board has no password. So if you guys were to share it, we could have lots and lots of people in here. Typically we'll lock it down when we want to protect the data. So if we turn it into a product, then we'll lock it down. For this team to say. Yeah.
Right. Oh, this is great.
It's cool. And from a navigation standpoint, I think we did this once before, but you're in control right now. If you click on that 43% in the lower right-hand corner, that lower right corner is a little gray box. And when you click on that, that'll open up a map. So if you were to click the map, it'll show you the whole board and allows you to navigate. Or if you hit the plus minus, it allows you to zoom in or zoom out. So it shows you where you are. So what's really cool is that you can be, this board could be, like 10 buildings and we could be zooming in and out, and it's cool. Yeah.
That is cool. Very nice. So hang on here. I'm just going to take a look. Now you had some, were you going to go over any of these other categories? These,
yeah. So I was figuring, like, for homework, if everyone can focus on those first two steps, like thinking about what your challenges are, what you would love to have, what you currently hate about we don't say hate, what our current challenges are with our LMS, and anything else that you want to share. I think that's a great way to give us some things to think about, and we'll try to tackle a couple of them. And it's funny because when we think of LXP or an LMS in our 2.0 version, Kara was saying, we think about like social interaction, gaming, magical content just appears when I need it. But we got to get more real and think about what are the current what's the current workflow of an LMS, and what are the things that we need to record, and do we want to integrate XCPI or whatever those magical things. So if we get everyone to participate and add some data, and if you guys don't want to do it, that's cool. We'll do it together and then we'll throw it out there. In this ideate stage, step 3, what we basically do is look at all that data, and we would do this like on our next session, and we would kind of pull out, here are the 6 core elements that we want in our MVP, our minimum viable product. So if our goal was to launch something at the end of Q1, as an example, we would grab the elements that we could tackle in the next 3-4 months, and you need to have time for testing and deployment and all that kind of good stuff. But the goal would be to break it down, and usually we focus on one area at a time. So we try to limit a meeting to an hour, and so we might be like, hey, in this first hour, let's look at social interaction and how we want to include social chat within a course. So if we're all watching a course together, if you participated in Learning 2020, or if you're participating in an event like this, you have that chat on the side. So how do we take advantage of that and incorporate that into the everyday watching of content? Or as a facilitator, if I'm leading a class, how do I make a better interface? And just to throw out another tangent, Macro.io, if any of you guys are Mac users out there, Macro, MACRO.io is an amazing Zoom interface that came out about 6 months ago, and I believe it's out of beta now. But it basically takes over the Zoom interface. And what I love about it is that as a facilitator, it tracks each of us that are in the call. So if there's 6 of us, it'll say, Nick, you spoke 50% of the time. So my goal in those meetings is to talk around 20% and make everyone else talk. And I get upset, and it's really helped me to be a better facilitator. What's also cool is it auto transcribes everything, and you can use a tool like Otter AI. But those are things that we might want to incorporate into a LMS or into a Skype or a WebEx or whatever Teams meeting we're using. But those are things that we might want to incorporate into LMS 3.0, whatever it might be. So
That's
first we got to decide what we want to do. Yeah.
What was it called again?
That one's Macro IO.
Macro IO. Okay.
Yeah. It's free right now because it's in, I'm going to call it beta.
Cool. Had one question from Suzanne Shilton. She's saying, are we designing an LXP or what? And or what an LMS should look like? That would mean we wouldn't need an LXP. Are we designing an LXP or?
That's a great point. So I think one of the things that we'll do right now, I'm clicking on your screen, is we can add another box like, what does LMS mean to me? So I personally don't use the word LMS anymore. That was the topic here, so I just wanted to play along. I use learning ecosystem because I don't want to rely or require an LMS. So we can use that if that's cool, but we can add another column and just say, what do you want to call this? But I think it's important to identify, because there are features within the LMS, like we need to track that all 1,000 employees did this course on this date and we're good for our insurance or whatever liability we need to track. So
okay, got it. Thank you. All right. Well, I think that we've got all of our homework. I hope that some of you folks in the live audience are down for this, because I think this is going to be a really, really fun exercise. I am going to promote the heck out of this pretty much on a daily basis to try to get as much feedback and just interactivity as we can. So I hope that that you guys are open to participating. I'm really excited about it, and I'll follow up with everybody as far as when the next Zoom call is going to be. We'll probably leave Crowdcast, which is terrifying for me, but we'll go to Zoom, and yeah, we have holidays next week, so probably next week wouldn't be very good, but we'll follow up. You guys keep that link to that Miro board and keep playing around. Just get those ideas out there. Nick, thank you so much for doing this. I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Sure. Thanks, everybody.
All right, you guys, take care. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Bye.